Pode falar de música.
Pode falar de teatro.
Pode falar de show.
Pode falar de luz.
Pode cinema.
Pode cenário.
Pode maquiagem.
Pode foto.
Pode pintura.
Pode design.
Pode produção.
Pode café. Maestro.
Hello, everyone. So, I know it started a little weird. It's probably the first English podcast in the middle of a Brazilian podcast that we did, and I don't know if it has been produced here in Brazil at all. But well, the point is that today we have a very special guest. He is from United States, so that's why I'm speaking in English. And well,
does that make me special just because I'm from the United States? I'm not the only one, I don't think. Anyways.
Of course.
Anyways, I'm Chris Nielsen, and I'm a composer and a musician. I'm kind of, I guess, am I a retired musician? Because I used to play professionally for many years as a drummer and a little bit as a pianist, and then I retired for 20 years, and now I'm back into it again. And
I don't think there is in the word a retired musician.
Yeah,
you're a retired performer.
Yes,
maybe?
There we go. I don't perform out very much. I have fun in jam sessions and those kinds of things, so but I don't keep my chops to that level of where I'm, on the spot for a 4-hour gig.
Perfect. So you're a musician for the rest of your life, and a performer, retired performer. Okay. So, Chris, we're gonna talk a lot about a lot of things. Let's start with talking about what are you doing here? What are you doing in Brazil?
Well, I'm doing a couple things here in Brazil. One, I'm trying to be a sponge and learn about the music scene here, and you guys have done a fantastic job, kind of creating this community of musicians. I've sat in a couple of your recording sessions here this past week. It's a blues group and a Latin group, and you've really connected with some very special talent. And your father and you are both very talented yourselves as musicians and composers, and that's really just exciting to me to see that. So I'm trying to learn about, there's a lot of live performances that are going on in this. It's actually a pretty vibrant music community. I'm pretty surprised and excited about that. So I'm trying to learn about that and connect where I can, because that's in my soul. I guess I can't retire. I'm addicted to it for life. And then I'm also here on my wife and I are getting involved with a group called the Venus Project. And we're exploring. I'm the billboard today, but I'm here doing some work for a project that we're trying to get started on some farmland near Lages, and that's pretty exciting. So I'm trying to help get a group of people to go out and look at some land and see what we can do with that for a sample, or I want to say a prototype kind of city or eco village. It's a really exciting project. Just, go check out thevenusproject.com. You can learn a little bit more about Jacques Fresco and the legacy that he's left behind. It's a pretty exciting project. And then I am also working on a couple music projects while I'm here. I am kind of working with a remote team from all over the world, a mixed team in London and so forth. And I'm submitting.
Internet.
Yes, I love it. Oh gosh, yes. I have a guitarist from Canada and some singers from Minnesota, which is where I'm from originally. And there's an incredible music scene there. And I've kind of connected the dots on a song that I'm submitting for. Hopefully it'll get pitched for the Olympics coming up, which will be kind of neat.
Fancy.
And then I'm starting a soundtrack for a movie project. I probably won't do it till June, July, but I'm starting to write some themes and sharing some of the stuff from my catalog and working with them to kind of get the right mood. One of the things when you do a film, it's different than doing, say, a short, 2 or 3 minute animation or something like that. You really have to get inside the director's head. You've got to try to understand where they're coming from. And then the beauty of it, which the part that I'm really looking forward is you're creating a palette. You're trying to create. It's kind of like you're. It's not necessarily a band, but you're putting a band and an orchestra, a palette of sounds together that's going to help them tell their story.
Yeah,
so
the whole movie has to communicate. The music is like one big piece with several small parts.
But there has to be some kind of a thread between them. You know, it's like one of the examples that I use. I'm part of a. I help put together a community, and I moderate it, called the Composer Exchange. And it's a group of composers. I invited you and Marcel to join it. I know you guys are crazy busy, but somewhere along the line you can participate.
Sometimes I go there, I listen to I read some text, listen to some projects, but I don't have time to participate yet.
Yes. Anyways, it's a fun. We get together and we talk about a theory concept, and then we go write compositions and that sort of thing. One of the conversations that I had there, I do a podcast and I interview composers and try to get their story. In fact, I'm going to get you and Marcelo both on the program at some point. But one of the things I talk about is somebody as accomplished as John Williams. He's a brilliant composer. He's in his 90s, and he's done so much. And everybody knows Star Wars, right? Okay. Well, but if you listen to Star Wars or Jaws or any of the other movies that he's done, each one of them sounds like its own movie. It has its own unique sound and palette, and it's fantastic. I mean, you're going to listen to Jaws. And da da da. That's very different than the heroic music of starfighters. That kind of a thing. But if you listen to all of them, they still sound like John Williams.
Yes, it has language.
He found a way to put his signature on it, while giving each of the movies their own signature and their own palette and their own identity. And that's probably one of the most challenging things that we have to do as composers, if that's our genre that we're working in, which is what I'm trying to do more.
And like in the movie, you have completely different songs. Like Star Wars, it's a great example, because you have like the bam, great sound with battles, and you have the little flutes playing while in the desert.
Yeah.
And it's...
Or the cantina.
Exactly.
Like kind of like
it's
this
jazzy,
funky, weird clarinet kind of sound.
But you hear 3 notes, and you know it's Star Wars.
Yeah, and you hear 4 notes, and you know it's John Williams.
Exactly.
So...
Oh, this whole production part, this movie you're making, it's a long... Or a short movie?
It's about an hour long, probably about 40 to 50 minutes of music.
A medium movie.
And the thing is, it's some folks that I met. One of my kind of part-time gigs is I work for a company called Flow Sports and Flow Hockey, and we go out and shoot college hockey games and college track and the cheer with all the cheer. They do all these competitions and stuff like that. And I've met so many wonderful people doing that. And, one guy's working on a brilliant film about baseball, a very historical thing. And then these other guys that I met, this one is it's kind of a zombie apocalypse, but it's got a little bit more of a story. But that's the thing. And each movie has its pace. It has a tempo. And this one's kind of slow. So... You've got a lot of space to fill, which for me is like, that's perfect. I love it, because I get to
canvas.
It's an empty canvas, and I get to create that emotion. And they've got really beautiful visuals. I mean, sometimes there's a zombie in there with blood. It isn't really pretty, but
it's beautiful in a specific way.
Well, but some of it's shot out in nature, and there's some beautiful nature shots and that kind of thing. And then you're trying to connect with the emotions of these various characters. So I'm really looking forward to it, because it's especially for one of my early film projects, if you will. I've done a lot of shorts and a lot of cues for libraries and that sort of thing. But it's going to really be a fun project. I'm really excited about it, because what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to really work on creating those canvases.
In a way, you have 45 minutes of you inside it, because, I mean, you don't have to put music everywhere, because silence is also a part of producing music. You have the pauses, you have the moments of silence in the movie, So, but it's still your signature. It's 45 minutes of your creativity flowing inside that empty canvas.
Well, yeah, and you know, sometimes you can say so much with just one note, a sustained note or something. You know, you get the right sound. So
Drones, backgrounds. Sometimes the sound design speaks for itself, and the music can get a little off. But it's
well, you know,
amazing.
that's one of the things I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years. I've done. I submit to composer competitions, and they give you, say, a 3 to 4 minute piece, and you write. Usually, like the Berlin Festival, they have a competition for the Foley and the sound design, and then you have the choice of the top 3 winners of that that you put in, and then you write your music to it. And one of the things that is always really interesting is when they have really good sound design, which most of these do, you want to stay out of the way of that. You don't want to take away from that. You want to complement it, because at the end of the day, your goal is to tell that story. Yes. It's not about, you know, it's kind of like you don't want to be noticed. You want
Exactly.
to be kind of invisible. If you're too much in the forefront, then you're and standing out too much, then you're not really doing your job, because your job is to really support that film, that story that they're saying, and tell that story in the vision of the director, because that is probably why somebody like John Williams has been so successful, is because he really connected with Spielberg and they got inside each other's head. And Spielberg, when he was doing his productions, knew what he could kind of pull out of that relationship with John Williams, and John Williams knew how to hit those right, idea moments in Spielberg's head.
Yeah, when you're producing for a movie, that's the part that you said about not standing out. It's critical. You have to highlight emotions. You have sometimes you create something with music, but most of the time you're there to make something stands out together. The music doesn't appear alone. It happens, but it's not the main point. You usually highlight emotions and grow what's already on the movie, the acting, the scenery. It's a hard job. But it's very, very fun.
And you guys have done quite a few of those here with the studio.
Yes.
And that's in fact, you won some awards.
Yes, we won some awards with some works. Some for me, some from Marcelo, most from Marcelo. And
he started a little bit before you. That's all.
yeah, of course. And that part about entering the mind is very good, because when you have, for example, I worked in a movie with a friend. The director was a friend who worked with us in lots of projects as a cameraman and a director also. So we talked a lot while I was working as a microphonist.
Boom operator.
Operator.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about the movie while we were recording it. So when came to the studio, Marcelo was gonna do the soundtracks. We talked, and Marcelo said, "No, you're more prepared. You know the movie better." They sent some examples in piano, and I'm a pianist, and it flowed. I sit down in piano, and the music was already written, because we had a lot of talks about how the movie should be, how the message it should send to the viewers. So that's this sentiment part, and the entering the mind of the director, of the script writer. It's fundamental to don't screw up the project.
You know, you told me that you're working with a theater group, a performance theater group, and I had done a lot of mostly as a drummer, but I had done a lot of musical theater work, and I think that has been really helpful for me in kind of seeing a different perspective that kind of helps glue some of these things together. I didn't just play in a band and then, take an orchestration class. I kind of saw how various pieces of these things are kind of gel together. And, one of the things that I've always been really impressed with is, and there's it's a fantastic exercise that I guess I have to say I aspire to being able to do it, even though I kind of do this in my practice. I'll, like you said, I'll kind of play the piano to something to see if I can get the right emotion out of, from a performance standpoint, and then I'll kind of translate that into, a palette or an orchestration, that sort of thing. But one of the things that has always surprised me is the old silent movies and what those pianists had to do.
The live performance.
And now it's a style in itself from that genre, that era, because it was, silent. It's before we even, came into anything except the piano was there, maybe some percussion stuff, or one of those organs that had all the little whistles and drum sounds and all that stuff, which is a whole nother kind of thing. That's kind of a pull from vaudeville. But anyways, that's such a skill that these people would be able to, composers / pianists would be able to extract from that picture
and connect. I
but it's really tough to do. Exactly. It's really hard, and some modern composers that have done that as an exercise, I'm just blown away at that. I'm not quite ready to do that exercise. I just chop wise, it's a very taxing kind of style to play. You really have to have some facility available to you. But wow, that's always inspired me.
Yes, it's very impressive. Well, we talked a lot about how we have lots of things in common, like being a producer for movies or music in general. But I want to know about how it is to be a producer in America, in the United States.
Well,
do you see a lot of difference coming to Brazil?
Well, here's the thing. I called myself a producer kind of naively, I think, early on in my music. And the term, I think, has changed. There's a lot of a Quincy Jones there's the side of being a producer where you're adding the right musical elements, you're getting the best performance out of the singers and the people that are the talent that's there. That's one skill set. That part I was fairly good at, having worked with so many different a wide variety of talent, because I worked in jazz and I worked in theater and I worked in a variety of different areas. But then there's kind of this other, but as far as kind of like having the modern sound or really kind of tuning into that I really wasn't good at. I see that as that is a different kind of analytical skill that I'm getting better at now. I'm working towards it. Pop music is kind of one of the next genres that I want to, kind of master. But I'm working in a different space right now. You can't do everything well, So I'm kind of I'm leaning more. I've been working mostly on orchestral kinds of arrangements and that sort of thing. I'll start getting into a little more vocals probably this year again. But I used to only do songs. I started as really I'm kind of a retired songwriter, sort of, but then again, you're never retired. So from a production standpoint, I did some things. I didn't quite have that extra, that extra spice that took me to a higher level as a producer in that sense. However, the other side of being a producer that I was good at is connecting the dots, putting people together and making a lot of things come, the logistics parts of it. That part, doing live festivals, doing television productions, connecting the dots, a little bit technically inclined. So like, in a studio, you got a lot of cords connecting. You could wire this place up, And people don't think about how that's a lot. You've got your electric run, you've got your audio run, you've got your internet run, you've got you've got all these different, sometimes your fiber or whatever. You have all these, USB cables. You're dealing with streaming. You're dealing with a lot of electronic equipment, and that is a whole piece, and wiring up your studio and having that, that facility, that's a whole nother skill. So you've kind of got this kind of technical side of it. And then it's one thing to hook it up, and then it's another to be able to use it. Like this guy over here, he's a fantastic engineer. He does a great job of really getting the levels right and tuning into the acoustical qualities.
John, he's talking about John, right?
Yes, John, he's doing a really good job. Very good. Well, in the recording session that you did down there, he did the first part of the session was with an ensemble. You have the bass, drums, sax, and piano. And it's not like it's a keyboard, it's a piano, and you're in an acoustic room. That was a completely different mix on the piano and everything else than when he's doing just a singer and a vocal. And it's like, I noticed he kicked the dog out of because the dog was in there in the other session. It's not so bad. You're mixing with percussion and everything else. But when we're just hearing the piano and this beautiful sultry voice, it's like, get the dog out of here. He's got his claws going on the. It was pretty funny, but I'm like, I tuned into that, and it was what a beautiful performance. But my point is that there's so many elements, so many layers, and as a composer, coming into the music business after taking 20 years off, I got completely out of it. I ran some other businesses and, property management and a web development company. And I did, completely different things, raised a family and then came back. And it's a completely different business. My gosh, completely different.
It was just a sabbatical.
Well, yes, but I'm able to leverage a lot of the skills that I had back then. I was an accomplished drummer and a moderately good pianist, and I say aspiring wannabe jazz pianist. But I fell under the category of being a new age pianist because I would like to, I had something to say, but it wasn't like, I'm not a classical pianist or I'm not a jazz pianist. But it's an evolution. So coming back, I was able to leverage the skills that I had before, but it's been constant school. I mean, I'm learning. There's so much to learn, and the beauty is, as I guess I'm entering my golden years. I'm going to be 62 this coming year, and I'm going to kind of officially retire, even though I've never retired. I'm happy that I still have my facilities as playing and hearing and seeing and so forth. And I have, I've got a run ahead of me. I'm excited about it. There's a lot that I can and want to do and I'm thinking about. But the beauty is that I will always be able to do this as long as I live. And I'll always find some satisfaction with it. I'll never be empty because I can always do that. Now, I say that because right now we're entering into this really fascinating and kind of scary sort of space with artificial intelligence. It's amazing what it's doing right now with visual. You can write a paragraph and it will produce a minute-long movie in high fidelity that you can't tell was artificially generated. It's mind-blowing what they're able to do. And there are some things that are on the edge as far as music composition. Now, if you're a beat maker and limited in your skills and knowledge about music, you can still leverage your creative skills with the tools to see what you can, to do different things with it. But you're going to be limited in what you can do with it. If you're a composer that has a greater depth of knowledge and you still have that sensitivity to be able to be creative with it, then you can leverage it, and it's going to be a really fascinating experience. Kind of like this cool little toy right here. This is cutting edge. I was like, oh well, you've got one of those. That's really neat. I mean, I still get the spam, and I'm like, hey, I'd love to get one, but I don't want to get a divorce. My wife would not be happy if I got that. So I'll look at it and I'll pet it and I'll touch it and I'll worship what you have here. This is really fascinating. But my point is that like you said, this is a new instrument.
Completely.
It's a very different.
Keyboard.
Now it does some really neat things. And we don't have to get into the technical specifications of it, but that's very different than a tambourine. I mean, and there's going to be plenty of new tools and new toys in our DAWs and our computers and those kinds of things, and that's fascinating. I still think people thought that disco was going to kill popular music. They thought that orchestras were going to be dead. And I think a lot of those classic sounds are always going to be there. It's going to be difficult for these systems, at least in the short term, to be able to emulate some of the creative things that if you think about the creative process is kind of our ability to be a filter and to randomly pick things against something else. Take an idea and go, oh, I like that. I want to add to it. Kind of like what you do with jazz. Hey, we're on Facebook too. Isn't that cool? All right, I feel famous. All right. So creativity has a certain amount of randomness and surprise with it, and that's what makes it usually unique. That's where those characteristics come from. So if you can take that and emulate that with artificial intelligence. And still have enough of your personal filter in there, that's where I see that to go. But even if it completely takes it over and it can do a better job than me, in writing some music for a particular style or whatever, because you can't do everything, to the same level and stylistically. But either way, I'm still going to do it because I love to do it.
Exactly. I think music. The concept of music never dies. You can't kill pop music, kill disco, because there'll always be like someone who loves that doing that, someone who loves that hearing that. So, and it's very interesting, the artificial intelligence topic, because, for example, it's a difference between some styles and others. I tried a lot of tools. We did a documentary about artificial intelligence last year.
Oh, wow.
So I send you the link later.
Oh, yeah, please do.
So I try a lot of tools and some music production tools. And when you do like pop music, American pop music, American the simple rock, it's okay. It's useful. Even now, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, they released a new version of the software, and it do a great job doing electronic pop music, but the artificial intelligence simply doesn't know what Brazil is. So we have like Latin music in there, but when you ask for a Brazilian music or a samba,
yeah, I think it's going to be more subjective to like writing a paragraph about what kind of music you want to come in and pull out. It's going to be harder for it to do that, I think, at least in the short term. I can see ways where that can work, because some of the tools, I don't know if you're familiar with Scalar, but Scalar 2 has this thing where you can pick different kinds of string arpeggios from say, an Italian type of theme versus kind of a more, modern kinds of arpeggios and ostinatos and that sort of thing. And yeah, so you can be able to kind of randomly pick those different kinds of styles and that sort of thing. That the thing is, music goes deeper than that, because music, if you look at the smallest, I'm not by any means an expert on quantum mechanics or anything, but if you start going to the smallest, what a qubit is, the smallest element that we know of, at least at this point, it's a vibration. And so there's a reason why we all connect as humans with music, because everything about our universe is a vibration.
Yeah.
And then, okay, you can make your brain hurt if you start thinking about, superposition and all these other elements of quantum physics and quantum theory and
change
but
exchange of energy. And
I don't want to
affects our heartbeats and brain
I am
waves.
not qualified to really get into that, but I try to listen to a lot of information about that, and it's absolutely fascinating to see what we're learning as a species. So. Anyways, I don't think that, artificial intelligence, well, I can't say never, because, one of the things I used to own kind of an older building, and I was, robots, they're never going to be able to do anything. They can go and put up a new building. We can get a 3D printer to print a new cement building around and whatever. Yeah, but they're never going to be able to deal with this old building. And then, it wasn't probably a year later, I saw a video where they had a robot hanging sheetrock and cutting the holes around everything, and it was like fully functional. I thought, well, okay, my plumber, who doesn't want to do this anymore, finds, there's a stack in the middle of the wall. You've got a robot with all the sensors, which is like every tool that he would have in his truck, and they can just kind of go down, and then cut the hole exactly here. That's where the leak is. I can see exactly. The sensors can figure out exactly where the hole is, and it could, if it's equipped with the right, kinds of tools, it can, fix it on the spot in a percentage of the time. And I'm like, well, I can't ever say never. So that, but.
And the same goes for production. I like what you said about production and creativity, because I always say is that producing, being creative, composing, it's always about decision making. You pick what you like, what you don't like, what you like best about something. I think this chord goes here. There's no right or wrong when you're being creative about something, but there's better or worse in your vision, in the vision of the creative person. And AI is trying to do things like that. They're trying to see what the majority thinks it's best. There's an incredible website where you can select a chord, and it shows all the most common chord progressions in percentage.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
see. Then, okay, I selected C. Now it recommended me to use a G, and then it shows the most common again, and you can always have it get references from musics around the world. It's incredible. So you have many tools.
You have to send me that link too. There's plenty of. I mean, I've got some other things that are like it, and there's some tools in the DAW. But one of the things that fascinated me, an artist that's really doing amazing things, John Baptiste, fantastic talent. But I think he was being interviewed. I think it was on 60 Minutes. And he's playing a little Bach interlude, He says, well, now let's play it like blues and jazz. And he takes that same thing and he jazzes it up or whatever. And it's like, whoa, it was really cool. And it's kind of funky now. He gets a little bit more funky. And then he says, well, let's take it into gospel. And then he does this, things and turns it into a gospel thing. That part of it, it's the same music, but it's putting a feel into it.
We have a recording here of a great musician. He's an accordionist. He has a song called Para Elise, which is for Elise, which is a joke to For Elise Mozart's. And he does the same part, but it's a choro.
Is a choro a style?
Choro is a Brazilian style.
Okay, cool.
So it starts like completely similar, very, very has a likeness to the original piece, and then it became a choro with a whole different instrumentation. And instead of an orchestra, you have a percussions, and he's on the accordion, which is already really Brazilian.
Yeah, I just went out this last weekend and heard a fascinating group. I was really surprised. It was an accordion and a singer who played the triangle, and a drum when he had this little thing underneath, and then a little tam. Zabumba?
Zabumba.
Oh, they were rocking, man. They had the place. Everybody was dancing, and it was 3 guys. I was like, whoa, that was really
the name
really
of the
fantastic.
style is forró.
Forró?
Forró is one of the greatest styles in Brazil. for people to dance and party. It's very Brazilian, and it's very warm, and people love it.
See, this is the big thing. Okay, you asked me about production in the U.S. versus Brazil. Now, if you play accordion in America, you're a goof, you're a nerd, man. But you play it here, and it's like the rock guitar, of the world, because it's like, oh, it's like you play accordion. Wow, that's amazing. And that was a kind of a, I don't know if I'm going to say culture shock from anything. I was really surprised by that. It was really, really cool. And we, there's a lot of, especially like where I'm going out kind of more in the farm turf. And there's some places around here that are still pretty traditional, but, where they have gauchos. Okay, you go there and they got the total gaucho dance. I mean, I guess in Nashville you go to a line dance, you're going to have people showing up in their cowboy hats. But this is the cowboy, kind of the cowboy music of the area,
south of Brazil.
Yeah, and it's so cool. I love it. It's really it's got such a fun groove to it.
Yes. No, and curious. I was watching a series these days with Steve Martin. And he was playing the concertina.
Steve Martin plays the concertina? I know he plays banjo very well. I didn't know.
No, but he plays the concertina.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In a series, Only Murders in the Building, and he's playing the concertina. And everyone makes a joke about it. And I was like watching and, oh my God, I really want to play the concertina. This sounds amazing. I think like we like different stuff here. Yeah. Percussion is, I think it's the strongest in Brazil. There's a lot of great percussionists here. They play tons of different instruments simultaneously, and it's sometimes the percussionists come here with some piece of instruments from Nordeste, with this northeast of Brazil, and then it's something that we never saw because Brazil is too big. So we in the south don't know about every instrument on the north, and vice versa. And they sometimes with caps, bottle caps, and they do a whole new instrument or put the matchstick, then turn it into a ganza. So it's very creative and it's very free also.
Well,
as long as it sounds good.
There's a book about this thick about the music in Africa and the origins, and it's oh my gosh, the guy that wrote it, I forget his name, but he was so articulate in everything, and it was just like this Pandora's box because he's talking about all these various. I mean, Africa is where a lot of these instruments came from and inspired, and they had each tribe. Now think about that, and you probably have the same kind of thing here. Had their own drums and their own sounds and their own rhythm. And so all of that kind of, eventually, people would tribes would get together but this is how they communicated. This was and it was passed on through generations through the keeper of song, if you will. But one of the things that, for example, in the Composer Exchange, this community that I moderate, with some wonderful composers from various classes that I've been involved in, and different conventions and groups and so forth, people that I meet. This week, so what we do, for example, is we get together and we talk about a concept. So we did one on John Williams and all his kind of stacked major thirds and kind of some of the techniques that he uses, and then we would go write a song about it or write a piece about it. It happens, and it just so happens I was in Brazil, but we chose, somebody gave a presentation on samba, and we went through some famous Brazilian artists and Airto and Flora Purim and some great examples of the origins of samba and that sort of thing. So we all wrote a piece about it. And as a percussionist, I feel a lot of those rhythms naturally because I love it. I love the clave / samba types of feels, and it's what I gravitate to in my playing style as a percussionist. So I kind of felt in doing this, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to just grab some traditional Brazilian instruments that I had recorded and play them. What I did is I kind of played a lot of the same types of rhythms in that kind of a samba, bossa type of feel. But I used, in my DAW, I used different patches, and I actually used it was like a Native American drum, and then I used buckets, and then I used a garage door, and I used these just wild, weird sounds, and it still felt samba, and bossa-y, but it was unique enough. It stood out as being interesting. And one of the things I've seen that I love when I'm scanning through Facebook is all these little memes where some guy's built a guitar out, from Africa or something. He's built a guitar out of a gas can and a broom handle, and he's like just jamming away, playing something really amazing. And then the guy with all these buckets that he built this drum kit out of is jamming along with him. I'm like, I love that innovation. They're finding a way to get the music out of them, and that's just I love that. And that's the thing that I bet is really cool when, like you were saying, people come from different parts and they've kind of gotten accustomed to playing different instruments. 100 years from now, somebody's going to bring something like this, I suppose, to the table and go, oh, well, I've got this one, and then I've got these buttons, and then somebody else will pull out their harmonica.
It's a harmonica.
Wow, it's a chromatic. Yeah, Stevie Wonder plays one of those. Zoot Sims or Tillman. Zoot Tillman. It's another one. That looks hard.
Yeah, I tried and failed multiple times. So yeah, I'll say it's hard. Maybe it's not for someone who's watching, but I think it's hard. Okay.
You know what I say is I can make music on anything. I can make it on this camera. It doesn't matter. I can make music on it, but to be able to play it as an instrument, that's a whole different thing.
Yes. So we're at the end of today's episode. And
this is where you put your finger and say, check the link below, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Check the link below, subscribe, be part of this. This has been an awesome experience.
Exactly. And
do I get to plug my website?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so
we'll do
cnpcreative.com, Charlie Nancy Paul Creative.com. You can come check out some of my music. I've got a couple albums of stuff up there and some YouTube videos and that sort of thing, and hopefully you might find something interesting. And thank you for allowing me to put that shameless plug. And then the book, yourcompasslist.com.
It's the merchandising. It's always good. So, yeah, subscribe to the podcast, like the episode, hit the like button in any place that you're listening, if it's YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
Oh, and then the notification button where it goes,
yeah, the notification button.
Yes.
And
all
also,
those things.
Share with your friends, with your speaking English friends, and also with your Brazilian friends, because we have subtitles for the Brazilians who watch the podcast. So, well, that's almost it for today's episode. I would like to leave you with the last words because I'm not that interesting to keep doing this. So go on and end today's episode with a cute message for your viewers.
Well, I would like to say, thank you guys for doing all the great work that you're doing here. And it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your hospitality. I am going to talk you out of one of those cool T-shirts, which you can probably also buy if you go to the website as they try to sell their merchandise. But a great team here. If you need to record your music, I'm really impressed. They have a wonderful package. Talk to this guy and Marcelo. I love it. And as I say on my podcast, always end on a high note. And be sharp.
Nice. That's a nice one.
There's a little musical thing there,
It's a pun.
It's without being cheesy, but yeah, anyways.
Well, it will be very hard to translate this pun.
Yeah.
But I'll try my best to adapt later. So, well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, brother. Keep making the music.
Thank you guys for listening, for watching, whatever you're doing right now. If you're washing the dishes or something, well, thank you for being a part of this. Pay attention to all the episodes because our podcast is probably the best podcast of all. Because
I could take this home with me.
You're awesome. It will be very hard for you to send it back from the States.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
So now we're gonna take all these instruments and we're gonna make a jam session. And I see you guys on the next episode. Bye bye.
We're having fun here. We're jamming.
PODCAFÉ, Maestro.